when you have the bridge settlement network, MBridge, it's instant auditing, it's instant settlement, and it's instantly verifiable transparently. Think of what Zoltan Pozsar said, transparency in commodities. This is a marriage between blockchain technology and commodities and gold. Having it held in multi-jurisdictional locations with every country spreading their gold amongst those jurisdictions is genius, because it does take the trust out of it, and it's verifiable, and it's transparent.
In every major turning point in monetary history, the real shifts never begin with headlines. They begin with architecture, quiet infrastructure changes that only become obvious in hindsight. And right now, a new foundation is being laid beneath the global economy, one that doesn't rely on trust, central banks, or Western control. It's being built on blockchain, backed by gold, and spearheaded by a coalition of nations fed up with the dollar's dominance. The centerpiece of this shift is MBridge, the multi-central bank digital currency settlement platform developed by the Bank for International Settlements and now fully operational across 16 nations. It promises instant settlement, transparent auditing, and the complete bypassing of the traditional SWIFT system. But what truly marks the tectonic nature of this development came in a recent statement from Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov. He revealed that this new system will be open to non-BRICS nations, but crucially, it will exclude the US dollar, the euro, and the British pound. In one stroke, the BRICS bloc didn't just sidestep the Western financial order, they started building a parallel one. To help break down what all this means for global trade, geopolitics, and the future of money, we turn to Andy Schectman, president of Miles Franklin Precious Metals and one of the most consistently accurate voices tracking the rise of BRICS and the remonetization of gold. In this video, Andy outlines how gold, blockchain, and commodity-backed trade are merging into a new decentralized system, one that redistributes economic power away from Washington and toward the global south. He explores how multi-jurisdictional gold vaults, integrated with MBridge and regional exchanges from Shanghai to Riyadh to Africa, are forming a network that could soon allow 90% of the world's population to trade and settle in a system that doesn't need dollars or US treasuries. This is more than de-dollarization. It's the beginning of a new monetary order. So if you value independent analysis, hit that like button, subscribe to stay ahead of the mainstream curve, and drop a comment below, because what you're about to hear could define the next financial era. We appreciate the support and hope you enjoy the video.
The theme of my presentation is that the BRICS are more dangerous than ever. And dangerous might not be the right word, but I think they're becoming more legitimate than ever. The crux of what I was talking about, it centers around the development that we saw a couple weeks ago where the Shanghai Metals Exchange came out and said we are going to internationalize our exchange by a series of multi-jurisdictional hubs around, the first one in which is under construction right now in Hong Kong, the next one in Saudi Arabia, and then a set of contracts has already been put in place to build these exchanges or these depositories all around the Belt Road, through Africa and through Asia, ultimately into South America. And you look at some of the other exchanges that just have come to rise, like in Singapore. We see the growing sentiment of not only the Shanghai Exchange, but the exchange in Dubai. We're going to have an exchange in Moscow that's going to gain prominence. You're going to have an exchange with the BRICS. The whole idea, and their announcement that the yuan is now convertible into gold on the Shanghai Exchange using that moment exchange rate for yuan, not converting into dollars, but for yuan. In other words, the yuan is being internationalized, and they came out and said this. So you can see the chess pieces are being put into place where they're going to internationalize yuan and trade it over their bridge platform, which they announced as well. 3 weeks ago, they made the announcement that the renminbi cross-border payment system, which is MBridge, has been integrated and already fully operational with 11 countries in Southeast Asia, the Asian countries, and 5 in the Middle East, which at present time represents nearly 40% of global GDP. I think 38% was the exact number. So you got those countries. And then you have the BRICS, but then you have the Belt Road and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Each one of those two organizations alone account for, the SCO accounts for 50% of human population, 35% of global GDP. Now, there is some crossover in the Belt Road, which is 70% of human population and about 50% of global GDP. You can add in other organizations like the Asianic countries I mentioned, the Eurasian Economic Union, like Kazakhstan and Russia. There's crossover. But all of these entities are closely aligned with the BRICS. They're not in the BRICS, but all closely aligned. And the whole premise of what I am talking about is that, first and foremost, the mistake the people in the West make is they think in terms of seconds and days. You can see these are very strategic moves that are being made to open a series of multi-jurisdictional branches of the Shanghai Metals Exchange and others that aren't directly correlated with Shanghai Metals Exchange, but they're all connected. And the premise is that every one of the countries where these exchanges are built will all deposit little bits of gold in all of the exchanges. So I put some gold in here, 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 and everyone does that. So the gold is not held in one jurisdiction by one player. And that way, any imbalances, whether it be once a month or once a quarter, is settled in gold and will ultimately be in various jurisdictions. So the pieces are being put into place. Now, when you think about the Belt Road, when you think about Shanghai Cooperation, when you think about all of these groups, the Asianic countries, Middle Eastern countries that aren't in BRICS, it's substantial. And the one pushback that people like Daniela make is that they're not legitimate enough. They're a sideshow. They're not big enough. Sergey Lavrov, I think, really upped the ante when a couple weeks ago he came out and said, after it became evident that the primary thrust of Brazil, Brazil's holding, in fact, it's today that the meetings are going on, yesterday and today, I believe, was that they want to develop a new payment system independent of SWIFT. That's what this is. But Lavrov came out and said, well, that's what they want to do. Great, we're going to open up this new technology to non-BRICS members. However, it's not compatible with the pound, the dollar, or the euro. So they're keeping the West out, but now put it in context of what I just said with the Belt Road, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Asianic countries. If they are all involved and closely aligned with the BRICS and the BRICS nations, but not BRICS, and they are going to open this payment system up, which allows for payment in local currencies, which only strengthens one another's economies and their own system rather than converting to dollars, making the trade, going back from dollars to the other currency. You got 4 conversions back and forth, and all of this time. This new bridge platform settles in 7 seconds, not 3 to 5 days that SWIFT does. This new platform has a 98% reduction in fees. All of this stuff put into play, and then think about the size and scope of opening this up to non-BRICS nations is enormous. And all of a sudden, you have something that can very quickly challenge not only the settlement status of the dollar, but the reserve status, because what gold is doing in all of these vaults is not replacing the dollar, it's replacing what stands behind the dollar. It is a skeletal system, these vaults, of a whole new infrastructure, monetary infrastructure, and gold will take the place of treasury bonds. That is what, in my mind, it is doing. It is backing with legitimacy. The whole thing in the United States done again is that once we left the gold standard in 71, we were a system based on trust. And for a long time, we were trusted and revered. And you could argue the last 4, 5, 6 years, that level of trust is waning. And I think the world has gotten tired of promises of a country that won't get its fiscal house in order, that continues to go around bullying. Trump says, you nations who do this with the BRICS, another 10% tariff. That's not a tariff. That's a sanction. This is what's pushing them all together to begin with. So I think Lavrov's comments are massive. If they do open this up to all of these other countries, you're talking 90+% of human population that will have the ability to trade outside the SWIFT system and settle in gold through a series of multi-jurisdictional vaults. To me, it's the biggest news that's come out of the BRICS maybe since day one, since I started covering it. I'm not hearing it anywhere, which is kind of strange to me. You're hearing a lot about the new settling in yuan and the multi-jurisdictional, but put it in the context of the BRICS, it's massive because it gives them legitimacy that they won't find with just having 10 or 12 or 15 countries. You now are talking about 160 countries, 170 countries. You're talking the majority of the world. And that should be factored into the equation and not, I think, overlooked.
What we're witnessing isn't just a regional shift. It's a coordinated architecture emerging across continents. The Western model of trade settlement, slow, costly, and politically weaponized, is being eclipsed by a system that prioritizes speed, decentralization, and tangible value. MBridge is already functional with 16 countries, slashing transaction times from days to seconds and cutting fees by over 98%. But what matters more is how this platform integrates with physical gold vaulting, not in one location, but distributed across a network of regional depositories. This isn't just innovation, it's insulation. By storing gold in multi-jurisdictional hubs, from Asia to the Middle East to Africa, countries are building a neutral, transparent clearing layer where no single power can dominate or seize assets. And that brings us to a seismic announcement. Lavrov's declaration that the new system will be open to the world, excluding the West's currencies, signals something profound. BRICS is no longer a club of outliers. It's positioning itself as the new anchor of global settlement. This is where Andy Schectman steps in, not just as a market commentator, but as someone who's been tracking these developments long before they made headlines. He takes us through the chess pieces now in motion: the creation of regional gold exchanges, the expansion of gold-convertible yuan, and the infrastructure that quietly underpins a post-dollar world.
Yeah, it's like having it all. Look at the Bank of England held the gold of Venezuela. Nope, can't have it. Sorry. Now, again, and I use the United States in this context. First of all, when you have the Bridge Settlement Network, MBridge, it's instant auditing, it's instant settlement, and it's instantly verifiable transparently. Think of what Zoltan Pozsar said, transparency in commodities. This is a marriage between blockchain technology and commodities and gold. Having it held in multi-jurisdictional locations with every country spreading their gold amongst those jurisdictions is genius, because it does take the trust out of it, and it's verifiable, and it's transparent, and that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Having it held in one location, you end up making the wrong choice by partnering with the wrong side, and you get locked out of your assets, and that's Venezuela would make that choice, and it's not for us as the world reserve currency to determine that. You know, and I always go back to Iraq. We're there 22 years later, and ask the people in the Middle East if it was justified destroying their country, toppling their regime, and didn't find the weapons that they said were there, and they're still there. So I'm not saying that America is holier than thou. I'm proud to be an American. I really am. I thank God every day for it. But the rest of the world would say, well, that's hypocritical, that they can do this. They can destroy a country, topple the regime, occupy 22 years later actions. It's not fair. We should not be the judge, jury, and the executioner is the bottom line. And I think that's the model that they're trying to go far away from. And that is that, yes, China may have a very significant role in all of this, but by putting the vaults all around the world in different countries with instant auditing on a blockchain network, you are in as trustful as you can possibly be in a system that isn't controlled by one player, even if one player is slightly more dominant in things than others. If all the gold was held in Shanghai and the Chinese control it, yeah, you know, what does that mean? But you have it in 20 vaults around the world, and everyone puts gold in each one of the vaults, and you now have something truly distributed that would keep that from happening. The things that I talked about with you 4 years ago, no one was saying, and I can say that no one was talking about the draining of the COMEX. I was. What's happening? The COMEX and the LBMA are being drained. No one was talking about BRICS. I was. BRICS wasn't a thing. Saudi Arabia wasn't even thinking of it. And a lot of it has happened. Not the way that I thought, all of it. Not all of it has happened, but a lot of the stuff that you and I have talked about, I called it a linear progression of events. It's happened. A lot of it has. And that's the way that it is. That's why I talked with you before about misdirection and the art of war. We live in a world where things are very competitive, and world reserve currency, investments, direction of investments, all that stuff is proprietary and private, and there is no reason that anyone worth their salt would tell the world what they're doing. So they do the opposite, or they drop crumbs, and you can see the crumbs as you continue to research it, and you have to. And this is one of the reasons that people aren't successful in investing, largely, because they don't take the time. If they spent the fraction of the amount of time researching to safeguard their money as they did making the money, they would be a whole heck of a lot more successful in preserving their funds and growing their funds, because they work so hard to put money in the bank and food on the table. They come home, they're tired. I mean, when I walked into this room today, you said, it's tiring, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it is, because we've been working hard at this show for 2 days. It's tiring. And the last thing you might want to do at that point is dig into geopolitical events and, investments. And that's what I have an advisor for, right? Let him do it. Well, that's the problem. And I think you have to do that nowadays. The world has gotten to a point where, yes, you can find the crumbs, you can see the crumbs, you got to dig to find them, but then you have to put them together and make your own. That's why, I think there's 3 sides to every coin. There's one side, there's the other side, but there's the middle, the rim. So you look at both sides of the coin and then figure out that third side. What does it mean to you? I mean, that might be the best analogy, but that's the only analogy I can give you, is that none of this will ever be easy. None of it. And by the time it's on the mainstream, which appears easy, the big people have already way positioned themselves, and they're sitting, the old adage, on the deck chair of, sipping a cocktail, watching all of this happen. You need to make these decisions before it becomes obvious. And that's what I try to do. And I haven't been right on everything, but that's really what I try to do, and try to be a little bit different in this industry by researching, finding something, tracking it, and seeing how it all plays out, and continuing to find new things. Like, a lot of people are talking about what I am with the BRICS and with the new yuan settlement into gold, but I've heard no one talk about Lavrov's comment that they're opening it up to non-BRICS nations, with the exception of the pound, the euro, and the dollar. Well, to me, that's about as big as it gets, because that hits at the heart of the naysayers who say they're not big enough. Yeah, they are. Even though they never became part of the euro, it's the same thing. It's opening up trade with all of these nations. Even though they're not the BRICS nations, they're trading with the BRICS nations because of this new settlement system. And if you realize that China's entire goal is this Belt Road Initiative and all of the countries within it, there's hardly a country on the Belt Road that's in the BRICS, 1 or 2. But now you've just opened it up to 75% of human population, and all of these countries in the Belt Road are being industrialized. They're underdeveloped and they're resource rich. So China brings them into the fold, and all of a sudden you have all of these people and all of this growing infrastructure that is settling outside the dollar. And instead of buying treasuries, buying commodities and gold to offset that risk of holding treasuries. It's a monstrous thing for the rest of the world, and very bad for the dollar. And it's one of these things, because it's so drawn out, the little by little by little, and not the all at once, and people just dismiss it and poo-poo it. There will come that all at one moment, maybe long after we're gone. I don't know, maybe next week. I don't know. But if you don't see the little by little and the chess pieces that are being put into place, then you're not paying attention. But to your point, you got to dig. You won't find it on the evening news or on Fox News or anywhere unless you dig.
The final segment of Schectman's analysis takes the theory of de-dollarization and grounds it in hard historical precedent. Consider this: Venezuela's gold, stored in the Bank of England, was seized, blocked from access. The lesson? If your assets are held in a Western jurisdiction, your sovereignty is only as strong as your political alignment. But in the new system, gold is dispersed across neutral jurisdictions, auditable on blockchain, and immune to unilateral Western sanctions. This is not merely a Chinese plot or a Russian ambition. It's a global response to decades of financial coercion. From the war in Iraq to sanctions on Iran, the West has lost its claim to impartiality, and the rest of the world has noticed. Lavrov's declaration that the new MBridge platform will exclude the dollar, pound, and euro is not just symbolic, it's systemic. The brilliance of this new architecture lies in its resilience. Gold is being deposited in every vault across every region, from Africa to Asia to South America. No single nation controls the settlement layer. Even if China plays a leading role, it cannot monopolize the vaults. This is trustless trade by design, a multilateral settlement system underpinned by the oldest store of value known to man. What stands out in Schectman's commentary is the methodical, step-by-step nature of this realignment. This isn't a sudden collapse, it's a controlled decoupling, a linear progression of events, as he describes it, that culminates in a moment of irreversible bifurcation. By the time the mainstream notices, it will be too late to reposition. Let's break down 4 of Schectman's most powerful points. Multi-jurisdictional vaulting equal to risk decentralization. Western systems centralize gold in places like London or New York. The new BRICS-linked model spreads reserves across continents, preventing seizure or political manipulation. Think of it as a reverse Fort Knox, where transparency, not secrecy, builds trust. MBridge equal to instant, blockchain-verified settlement. Settling trades in 7 seconds with a 98% cost reduction isn't just faster, it's disruptive. Compare this to the 3 to 5 day cycle of SWIFT, and you're looking at a technological and economic leap. This is not a beta test. It's already live with 16 countries. Gold as collateral, not currency. Schectman is clear. Gold isn't replacing the dollar directly. It's replacing the trust that once stood behind it. This is gold as monetary infrastructure, not just a hedge. Sovereign nations are now choosing gold over treasuries. That's not symbolic, that's existential. BRICS Plus equal to majority world buy-in. By opening this system to non-BRICS nations while excluding Western currencies, the new architecture could serve up to 90% of the world's population. With the Belt and Road nations being resource-rich but underdeveloped, this creates a symbiotic loop: commodities in, gold settlement out, and no dollars required. Schectman reminds us that the mainstream won't see it coming, because by the time CNBC reports it, the institutions will have already reallocated, the sovereigns will have already remonetized, and gold will have already repriced. The dollar's demise won't be a thunderclap, it will be a slow leak followed by sudden collapse, and the fuse has already been lit. If you've been stacking gold and silver, not just as assets, but as exit tickets from a dying system, you're not speculating, you're preparing. Don't wait for a headline to confirm what the rest of the world is already doing. Trust isn't coming back, but transparency is being built, on blockchain, in bullion. Like this video, subscribe for deep dives the media won't touch, and let us know in the comments. Are you seeing the same chessboard move into place? Or are you still trusting the dollar to hold? Because the next monetary reset isn't coming, it's already happening. Thanks for watching.